Ah, right. Aha. I was right. That is the record button. Either I've just started streaming. Well, that'd be. I'm sure it'll be fine. Anyway, welcome back to episode 18, I believe. I don't know. I recorded a bunch in a row. So I recorded a bunch on the 24th and the 28th of last month. And yeah, so it's been a while since I recorded the last episode. Now, in between then now, let's just make sure that the
now entering a safe area.
voice settings are still where they were. I didn't want to disable it, but I did want to make sure. Let's push to talk. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So, where I was before. Oh, I got it here. I was going to be recording a concurrent series with what's it called? Division 2. So I was like, okay, I can do that. I can have a division. Bloody hell! What the hell did I end up doing? I don't remember getting to level 17 last time I was playing. Okay, well apparently I did. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah, I'd attempted. Oh, did I want that? No, I think no, because I don't remember firepower being particularly important. Anyway, yeah. So I was attempting to record as the Division 2 concurrently. Ended up having a bit of an issue with it. So I think I'll keep that. The issue, somewhat ironically, ended up being that I can't record in HDR. I went through a bunch of things to try and sort that out, and I just couldn't get it to work. For some reason, every time I kept trying to record HDR, it was coming out weird. So with OBS, I could record. I could record the HDR, but it wouldn't have any HDR, which seemed kind of pointless to me. Like, what's the point in playing in HDR if you can't record it to sort of have it?
Now, in 2009, we lost cell phone coverage for the whole neighborhood because a pack of kids from over Kips Bay Way came in and threw a bunch of sneakers up on the cell tower. I know, right? A total waste of good shoes. But now we've got someone else doing the same thing. Well, not with the shoes, but they are messing with the communications array. We can't have that sort of thing. Not around here.
Hey, nice to see you again.
Warning. You're now leaving the safe area.
Very generous.
Yeah, so, with OBS, it was working, but recording in SDR. So I'm like, all right, well, then there's no point in actually playing the game in HDR if it can't be recorded. So, but first I tried it with ReLive, and ReLive has an even weirder issue. Well, I mean, recording in SDR is not a weird issue. The weird issue that I was having was, it was recording in HDR, but it wasn't attaching the HDR information to HVEC. So everything looked yellow and red. Like anything that's any of the HDR value, like the normal values in the SDR space looked fine. But all of the HDR values basically sort of were blown out to yellow and red and such. So yeah, I don't know. So I tried running some experiments, and by coding my own recorder. Oh, it's one of them. Yeah. So I tried. I've been trying to write my own recording software. So basically, stripped out everything non-essential from OBS. Brought a lot of that in using the AMD graphics services, the AGS SDK directly.
Have a good one.
I've been trying to get that to work. Problem being is I've just not had the time to complete it. Because just as all of that kicked off, so much nonsense happened at work. And like I'm recording this at what I think it's about 5, 6 in the morning. I've got work later today again. It's the first day I've like been able, because yesterday was like my first day off in almost 10 days. I don't even know how many hours straight I've done over the last like 10 days or so. So yesterday was my first day off in absolutely ages, and I slept the entire fucking day. I'm not gonna lie, I just slept the entire goddamn thing because I've been shattered. So yeah, it's not really had that much free time. Luckily, I recorded a bunch of episodes ahead of time, so there's zero interruption in this series, which nobody's watching. So I don't think that really matters. But still, you know, yeah. So that ended up being a frustration, though. Like, what do I have as my secondary? All right. Yeah, so I'm a bit out of the loop on what I was actually doing in the game. I'm a bit frustrated that, as it stands, I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to have to do the Division 2 and SDR, at least as far as it goes right now. I mean, I might be able to do it later on. Can I jump up there? No. I don't think I can get over there, can I? I have to go over there. Yeah. Whereas I'm just a bit miffed, and it seems like I've done some research into it, and there's most recording applications don't actually support HDR properly. I mean, the only one that I could see that kind of did was which one was it? It was Shadowplay, like the NVIDIA Shadowplay. I believe that one does, but then the NVIDIA drivers themselves don't actually support HDR properly. Like they do an 8-bit dithered mode or something like that.
Loud and clear.
At least from what I can tell.
Think you could do something about the trash pickup next? No? Forget I said anything.
Yeah, at least from what I could tell from the from like the NVIDIA forums, I've not really had like an NVIDIA card in, I don't know, I want to say 20 years now. It might be slightly longer than that. Oh, I've already done that one. Yeah, I want to say it's got to be about 20 years since I've had an NVIDIA card, so I don't really know the state of it.
We were supposed to get some city funding to fix the streets. That money disappeared, and 2 weeks later, the mayor's limo popped its axle in one of our fine potholes. We just had a supply drop go missing too, but the good news is that some of the fellas from O'Hurley's found it. They're just not having a lot of luck bringing it in.
I mean, the frustrating thing is I know the AGS thing does. I do know the AGS graphic services do support recording in HDR. Like, it literally has zero issues with it. Because I've done it for projects and whatnot when it's been directly integrated for recording video. So this is what really threw me for ReLive, because I thought, well, for ReLive, all I've got to do is, you know, record with the HVEC encoder. Be fine, right? You know, the drivers support it. The hardware supports hardware encoding in 10-bit. And it's not like I don't have, because I also have the drivers specifically set to 10-bit mode as well. So, because a lot of people don't realize under the graphics settings menu, there's a setting that allows you to switch it to 10-bit, which means it isn't just things running in HDR10 and HDR10 Plus or PQ10 or Dolby Vision that you could record. Technically, the drivers don't support Dolby Vision, but you can actually do it with the old Windows drivers under older versions of Windows, like if you get the driver running using the 10-bit mode, because it outputs the display in 10-bit. Technically, I'm recording this video in 10-bit color, but because it's an SDR output, it's outputting fine.
Warning. Incoming hostiles.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's all very weird to me.
Warning. Incoming hostiles.
Yeah, as I said, it's all very confusing to me as to, like, I know the hardware supports it, I know the drivers support it, I know the software should support it.
Supplies taking fire.
So maybe it could just be an issue with the implementation via ReLive. I mean, that's all I can think of.
Warning. Incoming hostiles.
I don't know. I'm sure it's something I'll end up figuring out. I'm just bummed I'll have to probably end up recording Division with SDR. As I said, if only Shadowplay does it, and I don't have an NVIDIA graphics card, and I have no intention of getting one.
Well, would you look at that? That's some proper work it is. A lot of sick and hungry people will be feeling better because of you.
Mind you, I mean, something I'd argue is this is sort of it's bad PR for AMD. You know, because you would think AMD would want to showcase the fact that, you know, these are features of their cards, these are features of the drivers.
Hey, gotta see it to believe it.
So, the fella who runs the convenience store around the corner, he wanted me to say thank you. And that goes for everyone I've talked to. And I talk to everyone, you know. You've been a godsend. They'll be talking about you around here for years. And if me heart holds up, so will I.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's technically slightly better. Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, there's often quite a lot of things that irk me a little about the approach that AMD takes with a lot of things. The drivers in particular, like, I mean, it's definitely one of those things.
Let him go. He didn't do anything to you.
Oh, that's a safe house. I do want to get over there.
For God's sake.
I could travel to that one. That's closer. Yeah, so it's one of the things where I'm like, you're in a weird position where a lot of the AMD drivers, a lot of what I actually want with them is better stability, better support for their latest and greatest hardware. Just sort of like, generally having the whole thing work as intended, kind of like how the drivers used to be. And you would have thought, like, when they stopped supporting legacy, things would get better, but actually they kind of got a little worse. I understand that they didn't have the staff to support like the older hardware, but you'd think when you're focusing on just like one architecture, in this case two architectures, because RDNA is a second architecture,
Thank you so much.
that the stability and the driver quality would go up. But no, it didn't. In some ways it has, and like I've got no major complaints. But they have a habit of breaking things. Every other drive they have a habit of breaking things. Like, what is it? They've just released a new
Echo available for playback
preview
nearby.
driver, which I've switched to. But the one before this, which was 11.3, well, 20.11.3, it broke Edge. It wouldn't render Edge. I don't know why. Like, every time I opened the damn app, it'd go white screen. And it was the same with a lot of the UWP apps, like the Xbox app or such like that. For some reason, they were just not rendering. Especially like if I switched to HDR, instantly nothing. I could not get them back for love nor money. So there was this weird issue that they had introduced, and it was and everything had worked in 11.2, pushed to 11.3, broken. Now I'm on 12.1, works again. But that seems to be the way with the AMD drivers right now. Like, ooh, that's kind of cool. This is just how the AMD drivers are right now. They have a habit of breaking things. It's like, what was it? The reason I'm recording these now, and I'm recording them offline instead of doing an online. I'll do that later. The reason I'm recording this as an offline thing instead of an online thing, instead of streaming it like I would have in the past, is because I don't know if the streaming works again with the drivers yet. I'm fairly sure it does, but the thing is, I don't want to risk it breaking again on me, because it was broken for a good 6 months. Like, people could stream to Mixer, they could stream to Twitch, and I had no problems with those. But streaming to YouTube, which was the platform I was using to stream,
You are now entering a safe area.
nothing, it just didn't work. So,
Okay, here's the drill. Used to be me and my boys, we keep everything running smooth around here. But now half my boys are dead. Vic joined up with those cleaner jackoffs, and things are out of control. You gotta step in, cause right now, I got nothing.
yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, I feel like AMD now has a good income coming in. I mean, their cards, the last couple of generations, their cards have basically sold out very, very quickly, if not immediately. And their processors are doing amazingly well. So I think it's probably time that they invest in getting some more driver developers on board. You know, yeah, some more driver developers, some
Warning.
more,
Now leaving the safe area.
some more quality control, and just sort of like bring their drivers back to where they should be.
Plenty of my business associates done some time in the correctional system, huh? Yeah, causes some misunderstandings. But those creeps will come out of Rikers, they're bad news. Pulling people off the street. My crew never did that. People paid their protection money, they got protected, huh? Now, you...
Okay, well, I guess he was done talking. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I remember a lot of people used to hop on the AMD drivers. They'd drag on them quite hard, being like, "Oh, these drivers are just crap. They never fucking work." Blah 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 blah. Which was bollocks. The drivers, more or less, were fine. As I said, like, I haven't used an NVIDIA card in going on 20 years. And honestly, until I'm not, I don't want to say Polaris was bad, because Polaris was pretty good. It was relatively stable, but I mean, there was a definite drop in the driver quality after Polaris's launch. When they switched, when they were switching over to Windows 10, you had Polaris's launch. Things kind of started going downhill a bit, and in regards to sort of like the 5700 XT, in terms of like an upgrade, it was the first AMD card in a very, very, very long time. Like 2000, since maybe 2009, where I upgraded and I was like, yeah, this is the kind of performance upgrade I expect to see from upgrading my card. The problem being is it was also the first AMD card ever. And I don't mean like as far as I can remember, it's the first AMD card ever where it was just like, this instability is just unreal. Like, the drivers, quite frankly, were just awful. Yeah, the drivers were absolutely awful, just terrible. Like, there were numerous issues with games, like games would randomly crash on me. The card would just randomly hard reset itself, and like these were the issues with drivers that I'd seen in early Windows 10 development, when Microsoft were changing the Windows driver model pretty much with every fucking build. And in that situation, you're like, well, okay, that makes sense, because it wasn't just AMD having issues there. AMD was having issues, NVIDIA was having issues, everyone was having fucking issues making stable drivers for Windows 10. And AMD's were actually not as bad as NVIDIA's at the time. But this, we're talking about drivers that were coming out from what was honestly quite stable, quite stable place with GTN. I know that Vega had issues. I kept getting told Vega was having various issues, and a lot of them were stability issues. But in terms of like the normal card, because Vega was more or less a repurposed a repurposed workstation card. And I've had workstation cards in the past and switched them over to being sort of like gaming cards. They're not very good at that. But then that's what you expect from workstation cards. You expect them to be amazing for workstations, bit shit for gaming. But no, in terms of the 5700K 5700K 5700 XT. I mean, hardware-wise, it's an amazing card. Fucking amazing card. Driver-wise, it was one of those cards where I'm like, it's one of the first times where I've been seriously considering switching back to NVIDIA in quite a while. And part of it wasn't just like having the driver issues with it. It's a case of AMD had also dramatically increased the price of their cards. You're like, oh well, they're competitive now, so they can have like similarly priced cards. It's like, yeah. So the thing is you're kind of kicking your core audience in the balls. You know, you're going from having insanely good value cards. Because you look at the RX 480 or the RX 580. I mean, less so the 580, but you look at the 480, and it was honestly an excellent. Where's supposed to be going? Oh, were they all down there? Okay. Yeah, look at the RX 480 for a £200 card. Excellent quality. And that's the thing, like the 5700. In terms of overall performance, okay, you could make the argument in terms of overall performance because it's about twice as fast as the RX 480. You can charge about £400, which would be true if it was the same generation.
That'll show those Rikers baboons not to poke their noses in where they ain't wanted.
But we're talking about a card that's what, the next generation on. Sure, I kind of expected some description of a price increase, but the price increase we got, I don't know. That's a tough sell. Like actually increasing the price to £400, give or take. I mean, it wasn't exactly, but you are talking about, you know, the better part of it. It's just, I don't know. To me, that it felt. It feels very anti-consumer. And again, like people can make the excuse of, oh well, you know, it keeps it on par with NVIDIA, but I don't know. Is it? Oh, I didn't. Yeah, could you? Thank you. There we go. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was worth. I don't think it was worth screwing over their existing customer base. And as I said, you add into that all of the driver issues. I don't know. It's a good card mod by AMD fuck ups. Kind of the best way to put it. And they're not fuck ups that really needed to happen. If you get what I mean. Like they could have waited to release the card. I mean, it was already coming out after Nvidia had basically released all of their stuff. Oh, do I have two mods? Oh, interesting. Yeah, I suppose I could add a firearms one as well. I think those are for something else. Yeah. Can have another one on that. Yeah, I don't know, it's just a rant. A pointless rant about AMD doing weird things.
Look, I don't know nothing about no electronics except what I could sell after it fell off the back of a truck. But my nephew, the whiz kid, says there's a problem with our comms network, some busted antenna thing. And since those fazools from the electricians union are out making people at the carbonara, you gotta fix it.
It's just a weird rant about the AMD drivers. It's sort of like it went nowhere. Means nothing. Just peculiarities. Don't get me wrong. I love my 5700 now. It's a great. It was a great card when it was launched. Mod by driver issues. I mean, I still like the AMD cards. I still like the AMD drivers and the features, but honestly, I'd also prefer it if like they had better support with them. Like they're trying. I think, as I said, they've got the money now to properly invest in increasing their driver team, getting some proper QA. And I'd love to see that put to good use. Because each driver that's released now, I'm kind of, there's various things where I'm like, well, you kind of need to fix this, you kind of need to fix that. Like, to me, drivers working properly is more important than new features, but at the same time, I'd also like to see new features. You know, it's not like their development kits can't support the exact same stuff, if not more stuff than what Nvidia can. So why doesn't it? You know? Looks like there's more incoming. I don't know where they're incoming from. I can't actually see them. Ah.
What do you know? So, the freaking thing is working. Why'd you like to do that? No, don't tell me. What I don't know, they can't make me testify about.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things that could. Oh, that's an awful lot of damage increase. And I'm giving up an awful lot switching to that. That is almost a pointless upgrade. Yeah, but I'm just hoping at some point they'll sort of realize that they have the money. They should really invest in expanding their teams and getting all of the technology that they start properly implemented. Because I mean, that's another thing. Like, you've got all of these SDKs at the moment, and I mean, the reality is, so few developers are actually going to bother using them.
What you did for me.
Like,
Thank you.
because I mean, AMD have had like all of these open source. Oh. Yeah, AMD has had all of these open source SDKs that provide so many cool fucking things that you can do as a developer for absolutely ages, and most development studios just don't take advantage of it. They don't care. And a big reason for that is because Nvidia basically has every single fucking any graphics card sold is guaranteed to basically be Nvidia at this point.
All units be advised. We're getting reports of a cache of medical supplies at a parking lot on West 21st. I need someone to recover those meds.
Missing
So-
supply crate located.
From the perspective of a lot of
Warning,
developers,
hostile forces
what's the point in
approaching.
supporting anything else? Because, I mean, if you support something that's AMD only, then all of your NVIDIA gamers are just going to be like, well, this isn't running as well, or they'll cry about something. And that happens so much. The annoying thing about a lot of that is a lot of the AMD stuff, because of this, over the years, has switched to being very agnostic. So it's not like a lot of it doesn't even need to be on an AMD card to be usable, whereas all the NVIDIA stuff does. In fact, like a lot of the NVIDIA libraries are designed specifically to sort of run kind of a bit shit on anything that isn't NVIDIA. In fact, usually on anything that isn't the latest and greatest NVIDIA.
Warning, hostile forces approaching.
So I've often questioned why developers get so invested in yeah, they get so invested in supporting the NVIDIA stuff. But, I mean, then you look at the metrics of like the market share that NVIDIA has, the market share that AMD have, and you're like, no, if pretty much everyone is using NVIDIA hardware, regardless of whether it's better or not, you might as well support it. But I don't know. I think there's something else to it. I've never actually, I've never, I've never worked for a studio in the past that has ever had like a standing deal with Nvidia. They've generally sort of like they've had what they've had because it's come from like a big publisher or something, and maybe the publisher has a deal, but you have
Thanks.
no,
We've got some folks back here who need those meds bad.
you have no control over that. You just sort of like say, okay, well we need a bunch of new hardware, and the publisher sort of like deals with all of that for you. It's sort of like it's a chain of command thing where someone says, okay, we need this hardware. It gets sent down to the acquisitions. The acquisitions then makes a requisition to the publisher, who's then like, okay, well we'll cover the cost of all of that for you, and you know, it's that's just how it works with a lot of first-party studios. Like you're not, they don't work typically in the same way that a normal studio publisher situation does. So, it's, as I said, I've never been forced to use Nvidia hardware before. I've never really used them at home. So I've never understood the appeal of like a library that is going to just fuck over some of your consumers.
Exactly like we have a choice.
In fact, like for the last, what, I don't know, I want to say for the last decade at least, like all of this stuff that I've been involved with has mostly been console based. Specifically the Microsoft console. The Microsoft console.
Active echo beacon detected.
The weird thing is like the Microsoft acquisition department, I think since I left, have basically been like, well, here's all the Nvidia hardware. But while I was still there, it was a case of, well, they requisitioned whatever was sort of like best and cheapest, which usually ended up being a ATI AMD. But the thing is that all of the hardware ran on ATI AMD, you know, so I don't know. It's just one of those situations where I'm just like, it's. I think AMD needs investment in trying to get people to use their tech. I think they need better investment in their drivers. I'd like to see better support for driver features like recording in HDR. It shouldn't be something that I should be fighting about on the forums to get it properly implemented. It's the same with like just so there's not too much time left now, so there's no point doing another mission or anything. But before I sign out the episode, the key thing that irks me is I know the hardware encoder for the graphics card supports HDR. But there's also the weird issue of like HDR on Windows 10, and at least on the AMD graphics, when you're running 10-bit or 12-bit color, you know your display supports it, and you're running it through YUV 420 in order for it to sort of like actually be supported at 60 Hertz via HDMI 2.0. Well, it looks great on the TV, it looks great on the console, but then on Windows 10, you have to take so many extra steps, jump through so many extra hoops in order to get it to look the same way that you have via the smart TV apps that you have, or how it looks on the Xbox One X or the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 4. there's so many extra hoops to go through to get it to look and work properly on Windows 10. And a lot of people who get it working on the on NVIDIA are like, oh yeah, it works fine on NVIDIA. But often it doesn't, because they're running it as 8-bit dithered HDR, which means you're getting a HDR signal, and then it's being compressed down into a dynamic SDR. So it's like it's SDR with a little more range. And with the thing of it is for anyone who's never, well, there's someone around here apparently. For anyone who's never actually seen a proper 10-bit HDR signal, there's a difference. Like, there is a monumental fucking difference. Between those pictures. I think it's a big reason why there's a lot of people who'll turn around and say, I have HDR, it doesn't really look that much better. It's, it's no real difference. It's like, yeah, that's probably because you don't have it working properly. If you have it working properly, it's night and day. It is a literal night and day difference. Hell, you can actually see night and day properly with HDR. And with Windows 10, it just, most of the time, it just doesn't work right. The two issues I've noticed the most is you either lose color depth, so you don't get wide gamut color, or you lose the contrast depth. And that's the thing. HDR itself is the contrast depth. So that's the extra depth going from very, very dark blacks, like black blacks, to very white whites, and you can see everything in between. And you'd think, oh well, that's fine. As long as you've got that, then with normal color you'd be able to see everything fine. But the problem is if you've only got that, then a normal SDR color ends up looking washed out, so it looks like everything's painted in pastel colors. And if you've got wide gamut color, you can see such vibrance in everything. Like, it's lifelike vibrance that you can see. It's not perfect. It's not exactly like life, because at the moment there's no display panel capable of showing the full Rec 2020 human range. But it gets close. It gets close enough to say it's good enough. And you need both of these technologies working at once to get a good HDR10 image. And the biggest issue right now with a lot of displays, with Windows 10, is, generally speaking, it doesn't do both. Like, it either gives you the wide gamut color or it gives you the HDR, but it doesn't give you both combined to give you like the proper HDR experience. And so that's what a lot of people are walking away with and going, it's not really worth having it on, it's a bit shit, it's not as good as SDR. And the annoying thing is they're right. If you're running your display in HDR and you're seeing SDR content, it looks horribly banded. I don't actually... Well, I do understand why it's happening, because it's using a different color space, so the variance in the brightness depths is different. This is what gives you the banding. The funny thing is it looks so banded. It's kind of, for those who aren't old enough, it's basically like going back to 16-bit desktop color after going up to 24-bit, like true color as it used to be called. Obviously, true color has been like the default for most people's lives. But it's like going back to that. And like, it's that big of a difference. It's the same with going from true color to HDR. Like, it's that big of a difference if you can get it working right. It just doesn't on Windows 10 often. And I think part of it is driver related for both NVIDIA and AMD, because neither NVIDIA or AMD want to really give up on DisplayPort. I don't want them to give up on DisplayPort, but they don't want to sort of give ground to HDMI. Well, the thing is most displays are HDMI displays. That's just the reality of the fact, because HDMI comes from the display industry. So the people making the screens came up with HDMI. The people making the graphics cards, the graphics hardware, they came up with DisplayPort. And the fact is most displays are always going to have HDMI. And the fact is the display manufacturers seem to be charging way more for DisplayPort versions of their displays, despite them generally being better. But they'll take out features, they'll charge more, even though they really should be much cheaper. And so people like myself are switching over to TVs, not just because I can have a console connected to it as well, but because honestly, like, it's so much cheaper. Like, for £500, I got myself a 55-inch HDR 4K TV, which has built-in surround. It's got all the smart apps. It can do everything. I can connect it to my console, I can connect it to my PC. It's fantastic. £500 kind of gets me a decent monitor, and it will probably have FreeSync or G-Sync. But you're only looking at about 32-inch display. Might be super widescreen or ultra widescreen, whatever the terminology being used by particular manufacturers. It might have that. But generally speaking, it's not going to be 4K. It's not going to be a 2160p panel. It's going to be 1440p. It's probably going to be able to do 120, 144, maybe even 200 hertz, which is great, but no fucking graphics cards can really reach that effectively, unless you're dropping like £1,500 on a graphics card. You're not going to get 1440p at what, 200 frames per second. No game is going to fucking do that unless you're spending twice the amount you're spending on the display panel. What's the fucking point? And then on top of that, most of them don't support HDR, or if they do, they support a limited version of it. It's a joke. The whole thing is a bad fucking joke at the moment, and neither side is willing to give ground on it. And I think what suffers is these new technologies that both the graphics and the display manufacturers, HDR for example, that they want people to invest in. That's getting caught in the crossfire. Us trying to buy new displays, well, that's getting caught in the crossfire as well. I think it's a shitty situation. I'm going to end this episode because I've rambled for about 10 minutes on, on displays and shit. I'll catch you guys in the next.